start today's session with a conversation with Deepak Balakrishna. Deepak was part of the 1Mby1M premium program with his company Adya, which was acquired by Qualys a couple of years ago. Qualys, as you might know, is a public security company, cybersecurity company, and Adya was also in the cybersecurity space. So I invited Deepak to talk to the audience about exit strategy and what he went through, what was his experience. We often do bootstrapping to exit scenarios. And in particular, in certain sectors where the market has become extraordinarily crowded, but also extraordinarily full of innovation, like cybersecurity, bootstrapping to exit is a real option. So Deepak, having traveled that journey, would be a great person to give you some insights from the trenches, some lessons from the trenches. Deepak, welcome to the show.
Ishramana, it's good to be here.
So Deepak, why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about Adya. What did you what were you doing? What was the vision, and what was the journey in the beginning of Adya?
Sure. So Adya was a cloud security company, as you mentioned, focused specifically on data exposure from SaaS applications. So what that means is, and this you would have seen in a lot of cases, if you have a cloud applications like Google G Suite or Microsoft Office 365, it's very easy for people to share documents. You can create a link, share the link out with anyone in the world, right? And these applications make it very easy to share data, but that's a double-edged sword. IT has no idea even which employees are doing this within their company, right? If employees are sharing their documents within the company, outside of the company, it's very common for people to share with contractors who are on a temp project, and the contractors move on, you move on, but the document remains shared, right? So that's a point of data exposure, and IT has no idea this is happening. So we were a tool that was helping IT to get a view of what data exists in the company across these cloud applications, what is being shared, by whom, and to whom. So that's what we did. That was what Adya was focused on.
And Deepak, you were doing this out of India, right? The team was mostly out of India, yeah?
We were all out of India. Yes, that's correct. So I started this in early 2017. After I had moved to India, I used to be in the US for the longest time, then moved to India. And once I did that, then decided to start off with Adya. So we were a team of about 6 that started it in India. That's correct.
And what financing strategy did you follow with Adya?
So initially we bootstrapped. So my co-founder and I put in money, and we also, to be honest with you, did reach out to some angels and some VC funds, but we were very early in the game, so we had no proof points. So so it was very hard, especially in India at that time, to raise funds for something so niche in the cloud cybersecurity space. So we were spending a lot of time trying to raise funds. So we put that aside, and we ended up bootstrapping for the first year and a half or so. So that's how we progressed. Yeah.
And you did get a little bit of angel money in, right?
Towards the end, actually. So the first year and a half we didn't, but at the end of early 2018 is when we got about 250K in angel funding. Yes.
And in terms of timeline, at what point of the evolution of the company did you start thinking about exits? What did you have in the company at that point? You had some customers, you had reached some level of proof points. So talk a little bit about how much execution were you able to achieve before the exit happened?
Oh yeah, so we actually had a product. So going through the timeline, so we started the company in early 2017. We had a pivot around middle of 2017. The original idea was not working out, so we moved to the idea I just described in middle of 2017. By early 2018, around March or so, we put out our first version of the product. Very quickly had about 10 customers by June of that year. So we had a product, we had a few customers, at which point, Shramana, you introduced us to Qualys. At the point, we were looking really for a GTM partner because we, of course, we're a very small team of about 6 people, and we were looking for a partner to help us scale on the marketing and sales angle, which is where we really needed help. So we weren't actually looking for an exit when we first spoke to Qualys, but that quickly evolved as we had our first couple of discussions with
Yes,
them in the
and
middle of yeah.
the circumstance. I will talk a little bit about the circumstances that led me to introduce you to Qualys. I actually, right around that time, I had lunch with Philippe Courteau, the founder and CEO of Qualys, who has unfortunately since passed. Last year, he passed away. But Philippe and I had lunch, and Philippe was very high on India, and he really wanted to build a lot of acquisition-driven talent base and product ideas and so forth within the Qualys portfolio. So he actually talked to me about wanting to acquire Indian companies. So when I came back from that lunch, I think I immediately emailed you and I said, Deepak, let's open discussions with Qualys, and let's start with a partnership discussion, but my guess is this is going to probably evolve into an acquisition discussion very quickly. And I want to also comment on what you said about go-to-market strategy. Cybersecurity is incredibly crowded. And if you think about the buyer perspective, an enterprise buyer, large enterprise chief information security officer, CISO, or a CIO or a CTO of a large enterprise, doesn't really have the bandwidth to look at every little startup that is out there and evaluate their products. So they have close relationships with the top players like the Qualyses and the Palo Alto Networks and the Proofpoints and the Zscaler and a few others. But when it gets to the small companies, you kind of have to go to market through some other way to be able to reach these buyers. And that's kind of what we assessed. And this has become even more acute now. When we did this deal, it was already quite obvious that it would be very difficult to get an audience with enterprise CISOs at scale. Maybe a few would be viable through personal networks, but it would be difficult to get that audience, which is why we were looking for a partner. And as a result, by the way, of this observation, there has been a shift in the thinking of VCs who are investing in these very early stage cybersecurity companies. They are also thinking about, kind of bootstrapping bootstrapping. By bootstrapping, I mean also operating with a very small amount of capital, really operating tightly with a small amount of capital. Even if there is investor capital involved, the principles of bootstrapping still apply. But then, at the point where you really need to scale your sales, that's where a lot of investors are also seeking exit into strategic players who can then enable the go-to-market strategy. So what we did with Adya and Qualys very much speaks to the trends of the market. You will see, if you want to explore this topic further, go look up my discussion with Warren Weiss of Wave Capital, where we had this discussion from the investor point of view as well. So coming back to you, Deepak, talk about the exit. When did it happen? How whatever, of course, the introduction came from me, but how did anecdotally, what were the circumstances, the price, strategy, negotiation, whatever you feel comfortable. What you don't want to disclose is okay, but whatever you feel comfortable disclosing to just help our, entrepreneurs kind of get a feel, a visceral feel for that kind of a scenario, like a negotiation scenario.
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, in the middle of 2018, so June of 2018, Shramana made the first introduction to Philippe. We had that first call with Philippe shortly thereafter, around the end of June. He introduced us to his Chief Product Officer, Sumedh, who is now the CEO of Qualys. And we pitched to him and a couple of his executive team members on what it is that we do. Unbeknownst to us, Qualys has a platform of products on which they're looking for acquisition to fill in that platform. And they were explicitly looking for someone in the cloud application security space, which is what we did. So that was very much, we were lucky that the two fit so cleanly. Right? The stack we used, the engineering effort, the way we were thinking about it, everything fit how Qualys also wanted to build onto this platform. So very quickly, as I mentioned, it moved away from a partnership discussion to what can we do in terms of an acquisition and joining Qualys. So all of that happened in July and August of 2018. There were some issues around company structure and taxation, which slowed things down a little bit because we were based in India, we were a US company, and the issues around which entity would get taxed anyway. So that slowed things down by a couple of months. And in early 2019, in Jan of 2019, is when we closed the acquisition. So the entire journey was a little less than 2 years. So it was very, very fast from early 2017 to the first introduction was a year and a half, and then it closed 6 months later. So that was the timeline. So in terms of price, I don't want to go into too much detail. It was a good exit. It was a couple of $1 million there. And but there were a couple of times we went back and forth on the price with Qualys. So we did negotiate. It'd be good, as I said, to be comfortable saying no, which we did the first couple of times, and they kept coming back and raising it a little bit. And I did reach out to Shramana and others to get feedback on what seems to be the right price in this case. So that was about the timeline and negotiation and pricing. By October, we had settled on the terms of 2018, and then the holidays came and the taxation issue. But by Jan, we closed. So that was.
Deepak, one thing you said that I want to highlight on this topic, which I think has again accentuated over the last 4 years since you were in the trenches of this acquisition, the notion of architecture and platform. Philippe at that lunch had actually, he'd drawn on a napkin and showed me what he was trying to do with this architecture, kind of like a plug and play architecture where he could bring in new products and new, acquisitions and enhance the Qualys portfolio by plugging in new products. Now, this notion, which you may have read my coverage of the platform as a service trend that is sweeping through the cloud industry right now, is everywhere. There's a lot of companies that are trying to find, entrepreneurs who build on their platform, and then some of these are being acquired. So if you look at Atlassian's portfolio, there's a lot of companies building, a lot of startups building on their platform and then getting acquired into Atlassian. So expect this trend to be a big, big trend going forward. So if you're designing your exit strategy for a bootstrapping to exit scenario, it actually pays to align with the platform. In Deepak's situation, the fact that it was easy to integrate and easy to kind of weave the Adya product into Qualys and the architectures matched and everything was a big win, right? It's for, when a company is acquiring you, the company is thinking about, okay, how am I going to get value out of this acquisition? How quickly can I integrate? And and how easily can I integrate, and how easily can the sales force start selling it, and the CISOs start kind of plugging it into to their product portfolio that they're buying for us. So that whole thinking of ease of integration, ease of, achieving value out of the acquisition is very much present in the discussion and the thought process of any such acquisition. So
That's correct.
that, I think, is pretty much a good nutshell summary of the Adya Qualys scenario. Deepak, do you want to add anything?
No, I was just reiterating what you just said. So while Qualys did not have a public platform that we could map to, it just so happened that way. But you're right, Atlassian, there's Force.com from Salesforce, and there are so many examples now of platforms that you can plug into if that is how you want to grow, and that automatically again becomes a marketplace, a GTM, as well as a potential acquisition route in the future. So yeah, I would definitely look at that more closely if I were a new entrepreneur now. Yeah.
Very good. Deepak, thank you very much for sharing your insights and your experience with the community. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Shramana.